Hey, Warpugs. Today I'm going to be checking out something once again outside the wheelhouse, but considering the last Pancreas No Work video I checked out, it should have been expected. Inquisitor Zarius has asked me to check out the exploring series Timeline of Tamriel. Now, here's the thing about me, guys. I really like timeline videos. I really enjoy them. Um, it's just something about them. I like learning about, you know, when things happened and things of that nature. At some point, I want to do a timeline for 40K. At some point, I want to do all this other kind of stuff. But the main, honestly, for me, it's a thing. Um, I don't know why I enjoy them so much. I can sit there and look at a wiki and just look at like a timeline of a universe and just sit there and be completely and totally just going through, year by year, reading on events, seeing when, important characters were born, when they started to come to the forefront, things like that. It's just an enjoyment for me. I do apologize for the lack of a stream on Thursday night. I have been feeling like a train wreck the past couple of days. If you've noticed, I've been using. I have been trying to record a couple of videos that can be used if I'm unable to record. And yesterday I was not feeling too hot, guys. I just was not feeling too hot at all. Today has been much the same, and so was the day before that. So I'm just sitting here just feeling a little bit better today, so I'm going to sit down. I'm going to record this. Thank you, Inquisitor Zarius. This is the exact kind of video that I enjoy the most. I love timelines of wars. I love timelines of franchises. All that kind of stuff. So this kind of video is exactly the kind of video that I enjoy the most. So, without anything else being said, let's see how Exploring Series details the timeline of Tamriel. Warpugs, hit that like button if you haven't already. Boost me up in the algorithm. Let's go.
The Dawn Era, the Septim Dynasty, the Oblivion Crisis, Timeline of Tamriel. The Elder Scrolls series follows much in the vein of Tolkien's Legendarium in that it features an expansive mythos and history filled with gods, lesser deities, the forming of various continents, and multiple eras of civilization. Also, like Tolkien's works, it would be impossible to cover the full timeline of events and individuals within the Elder Scrolls series within the length of this video. Therefore, this video will serve as a general overview of the entire history of Tamriel and its creation, and we will continue to look into specifics in future videos. In the time before time, there was only the void, dark and limitless.
Oh, there I am right there. Yeah, okay. So, I was a boomer here too.
Two brothers entered into the void, Anu and Padome, with Anu representing light, order, and stasis, and Padome representing chaos and disorder. The two opposites created conflict, and out of this came another being known as Nier. The two brothers both loved Nier, but Nier was pregnant with Anu's child, and she only loved him.
Okay.
Padome beat Nier in his rage, causing Anu to cast him outside of time. Nier died from her injuries, but not before giving birth to the 12 worlds of creation.
Huh.
Anu hid himself in his grief and slept. As time went on, life flourished on the 12 worlds, but eventually Padome was able to return, shattering the 12 worlds in his anger. Anu attempted to save creation by gathering the splinters of the worlds into one, known as Nirn. Padome fought once again with Anu, and the two were pulled out of time together, with Padome's blood remaining behind as entities known as Daedra, and Anu's blood became the stars. The blood between the two that mingled became entities known as Aedra. The beings on Nirn that survived this period eventually became men and Mer, also known as elves. The land of Mer was known as Tamriel, and it is here where most of the events of the Elder Scrolls series takes place. This was an extremely simplified version of the creation myth meant for children, and we'll discuss the creation myth properly in a future video.
Okay.
At the end of the Dawn Era and the beginning of recorded history, Tamriel is largely populated by elves, with the other 3 continents of the world inhabited by men. The ancestors of the Nords were the first men to properly settle in Tamriel, colonizing the cold northern regions of the continent.
All right.
Also living on Tamriel are the Beast Folk, sentient animals that would become various races, such as the Khajiit, Argonians, goblins, and even the dragons.
Huh.
The
Okay.
technologically advanced elves drove the beast folk into the jungles, marshes, and mountains of Tamriel. The Chimer, who would become the Dark Elves, settle in the harsh land of Morrowind. And the Dwemer, also known as Deep Elves or Dwarves, built underground cities in the mountains near Morrowind. Other elves settled in the forest to the southwest, and became the Bosmer, or Wood Elves. Elves that settled in the center of Tamriel were known as Aelids, also known as Wild Elves,
Huh.
and built an empire in the lands known as Cyrodiil. A certain population of elves are corrupted by a Daedric prince, and become the Orsimer, or Orcs.
That follows really, really well with Tolkien's series of events.
The elves that most closely clung to their ancestors stayed on the Somerset Isles off the coast of Tamriel, and became known as the Altmer. Settling in the northern regions of Tamriel, known as Skyrim, were the Snow Elves, who for a short time lived alongside the humans dwelling there. This peace was broken, however, by the elves during an event known as the Night of Tears,
Oh,
when
I
the
wonder.
Snow Elves slaughtered nearly the entire population of a human town, supposedly as a preemptive measure due to the growth rate of the humans.
Huh.
Another theory suggests a powerful artifact was uncovered by the men, and the elves desperately wanted it. Regardless,
So the elves were dicks even back then in Tamriel. Okay.
the humans came back in force and waged war against the Snow Elves, eventually leading to their downfall. During these early years, known as the Merethic era, the various races and communities of elves would continue to respect, in varying degrees, the king on Somerset Isles, where the Altmer lived and where many of the original elves had landed on Tamriel. This began to change, however, when a king of the Wood Elves managed to unite his divided people into a unified kingdom, and declared it the Comoran dynasty. Along with this, he marked the year as the beginning of the first era of history. Harold, in the
Little bit arrogant, but if you're going to be the first one to do it, I mean, you get to call it.
north, manages to conquer all of Skyrim, becoming the first High King of the Nords. Another group of humans that were enslaved by the elves of Cyrodiil managed to revolt against their oppressors and took control of the region, giving greater power to the race of men. In the region of High Rock to the northwest, the elves also kept humans as slaves, but years of intermingling led to an assimilation between the two races, giving the descendants of the humans, known as Bretons, an affinity for magic.
Uh-huh.
For a while, the Nords of Skyrim continued to grow in power.
Rule 34 searches just increased 1,000-fold. Anyhow.
And over a period of nearly 200 years, the Nords conquered much of High Rock, Morrowind, and portions of Cyrodiil. Unfortunately for them, an assassination of their king, who also wished to conquer the realm of the Wood Elves, led to a period of disharmony while they scrambled for leadership. The elves of High Rock took back their lands, as well as some of Skyrim, and an uneasy alliance between the elves living in Morrowind, the Chimer and Dwemer, allowed them to force the Nords back. This uneasy alliance was shattered fairly quickly, however, as the two races of elves disagreed heavily on religion, and a war began that ended with the complete disappearance of the Dwemer race from Tamriel.
So that's what happened. That's what happened. I always wondered what happened to the dwarves. I never figured it out. And if, me, when I'm in games, I just want to play the game. I really should take a lot more time and read stuff when quests pop up, but I'm too much of an idiot for that in any case.
Also during the First Era, the region to the west that would come to be known as Hammerfell was considered the most inhospitable region of Tamriel, containing a massive desert and monstrous beasts. The region was uninhabited for quite some time, until the humans living on the continent to the west abandoned their home as it was magically sinking and traveled to Tamriel.
That's bad.
As they were already used to living in a harsh environment, the humans managed to settle in Hammerfell and were known as the Red Guards. During the second half of the First Era, a magical plague originating from a slug-like race that lived to the west of Tamriel managed to wipe out roughly half the population living on the continent.
That's bad.
Valenwood, the region of the Wood Elves, was devastated by the plague, eventually allowing the Empire of Cyrodiil to conquer them and abolish the Camoran dynasty.
Huh.
The Empire of Cyrodiil would also conquer Black Marsh, home of the Beastfolk Argonians, and control High Rock and Skyrim as part of a unified Cyrodiil. They would then set their eyes on Morrowind, launching a war against the elves there that would eventually end with the assassination of an emperor and the end of the First Era.
There you go.
The early parts of the Second Era saw many dragons hunted and slain, leading to their eventual disappearance for many centuries. This period would also bring rise to the mages, fighters, and thieves guilds, as well as the forming of the Dark Brotherhood, a league of secretive assassins.
I actually liked playing Elder Scrolls Online, but now when I log in, it's like every single class is pretty like everybody's using other abilities, and it's very rare that you can find somebody that actually uses their class abilities anymore. It's just ridiculous.
Due to constant civil wars, the Empire of Cyrodiil was thrown into turmoil without a proper leader for centuries. Overall, the Second Era is largely comprised of various wars between the regions and races of Tamriel, among them the Three Banners War, that saw various factions aligning with one another, either to conquer Tamriel or to keep it a free continent. The Second Era would come to a sudden close, as an individual that would come to be known as Tiber Septim began conquering Tamriel as a general, while serving the king of a small part of Cyrodiil. Tiber was a dragonborn, a powerful individual containing the blood and soul of a dragon, and used his might to eventually unite all of Tamriel under a single banner.
It's not surprising that he'd be able to do it. I mean, look at his jawline. Guy's an absolute Chad.
He was crowned emperor and ushered forth the Third Empire of Cyrodiil, as well as the Third Era of history. The Septim dynasty would not be without struggles, however, and over the next 100 years, the Empire would see 6 new emperors, as the throne is racked with assassinations and turmoil. Many of the other regions of Tamriel begin to demand a growing level of independence from the troublesome Empire. Towards the end of the Third Era, 368 years after Tiber Septim was crowned emperor, Uriel Septim VII assumes the title as the 21st emperor. Roughly 20 years after he takes the throne, he is imprisoned in another dimension by his imperial mage, who begins to impersonate him.
Lovely.
He's finally rescued 10 years later by an individual who would come to be known as the Eternal Champion. Also during the Third Age, one of the greatest heroes of the Chimer Elves of Morrowind, Nerevar, is reincarnated by the Aedra for the purpose of righting the wrongs that a group of Chimer leaders had committed during the First Era. Several years afterwards, the Oblivion crisis would occur, beginning with the assassination of Uriel Septim VII and involving the invasion of Tamriel by the Daedric prince Mehrunes Dagon and his army.
This, when you're invaded by an army of demons, it's always a very excessively, horribly bad sign. Daedra, not as bad, but close.
Martin Septim is crowned emperor for a short time, before he sacrifices himself to banish Dagon and end the crisis. Thus also ends the Third Era and begins the Fourth. Tamriel begins to rebuild itself after the Oblivion crisis, but the Empire of Cyrodiil is left in the worst shape, damaged and without an emperor. A conglomeration of elves, known as the Thalmor, go to war in an effort to abolish the Empire and return elves to power.
Yep.
The war did not go well for the failing Empire, and a treaty was signed that heavily favored the elves. Notably, the people of the Empire are forbidden from worshipping Talos, the ascended form of the Emperor Tiber Septim, to godhood. The elves believed this was blasphemy, but many humans had embraced Talos as a core part of their religion.
Mm-hmm.
In Skyrim, a civil war broke out between the Imperials, who wished to maintain order and unity in the Empire, partly by enforcing the ban on Talos worship, and the Stormcloaks, who wished to secede from the Empire. Also during this time, the Dragon Crisis broke out in Skyrim, and Alduin, a dragon deity that the Nords believed would bring the apocalypse, returned to Skyrim and resurrected many of the dead dragons.
Zombie dragons are never fun, guys. Just say no.
Alduin is finally slain by another dragonborn, ending the crisis and saving Skyrim. And that pretty much brings us up to the current point on the Elder Scrolls timeline.
Mm-hmm.
If you're ending this video still highly confused about the overall history of Tamriel, don't worry. We'll be looking further into many of the things mentioned in this video in an attempt to more reasonably educate you on the series' lore.
Nice.
For those wondering where the games fit in, Elder Scrolls Online is the earliest game in the timeline, taking place during the Second Era. Elder Scrolls Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, and Oblivion all take place during the Third Era, with Morrowind and Oblivion only a few years apart. Finally, the events of Skyrim take place 200 years into the Fourth Era, being the most recent game chronologically.
And I am really, really hoping for ESO 6. I want it. I want it. I just want it.
The lore of the Elder Scrolls franchise is massively convoluted, featuring thousands of years of history, dozens of different races, countless wars, and even magical events that warp time. All of this added up has made it one of the most beloved and endearing fantasy series of modern times.
No. When we understand the events that occur to us, the events become history. History is understanding. Otherwise, we are just all dumb animals trying to get in out of the cold. Hasfat Antabolus. Guys, Elder Scrolls is I love the franchise. I absolutely do. I cannot wait for ESO 6 to come out. I really, really do want that to come out. Because of the sheer... Wow, there's a lot of dust on my camera right now. Look at that. I swear it's not a ghost. I know some of you have been playing that ghost game. This is not a ghost. She's in there yelling at the war pugs. So... Yeah. So, I really, really want to see... Because... In Skyrim, the whole thing with the Stormcloaks is just an attempt by the Thalmor, however you say their stupid name, to destabilize the Empire even more than it's already destabilized. So it is a thing. I would hope that we'd see in ESO 6 the results of, what happens after the events in Skyrim. I would hope it would take place in Cyrodiil itself, and I would hope that it would encompass a lot of the actual world itself, because I know ESO contains a lot of zones, and if they can do that for ESO, they can do that for Elder Scrolls 6, and I would hope that it's not a massive online multiplayer game. So many franchises have turned down that route, and I just hope it's not the case, because one of the things that made Skyrim so much fun was how many times you could play it and how many different ways that you could do things. But if it's a massive online multiplayer game, it's going to be a bit of an annoyance for me. But I would love to have a chance to make a huge impact. If you could lead armies, if you could do this, if you could do that, just a whole bunch of stuff that I would hope that you could do in ESO 6 and the war between the Aldmere and, the Aldari. I'm an idiot. I keep on flipping words. Between the elves and the Empire. I would love to see that actually occur. I would think it would be so interesting if you could take a bigger role in geopolitical events than just, just being a solo person. If you could like lead like a troop, a force, an army, something, that would be an awesome ESO game. But aside from all that, guys, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know down in the comment section below. And if you want to see more of this, the best way to do it is go down to the Discord and pop something in the request for other reactions. Because I actually am... I love timeline videos, and I really, really enjoy ESO. It's one of my favorite franchises. All that being said, guys, I'll catch you next time.